I will take this opportunity to remind everyone that the meeting will be recorded. So good morning, and those who haven't seen yet, Happy New Year. It's getting on in one, but I think this will be about the time where you call a line to that. Could we have the Sederunt and apologies, please?
Good morning, everyone. We have 4 members present, and so far I've got apologies from Councillor Gilroy, Councillor Dykes, Councillor Ian Crothers, Councillor Yen, Councillor Wicks, and Councillor Wood are not present but may be along later in the meeting.
Item 2, declarations of interest. Any interest in this one? No hands up, so we'll move on. Item 3, minutes of meeting of 5th of December 2016. They picked up that with the frontispiece, some people who were absent the last time are actually recorded as being present, so that's just a wee technical glitch and we'll sort that out. With that, are we happy to accept the minute? That is approval. Just one piece of feedback on the minute. The last one, the scrutiny, the report that went to full council, and we did a consultation with community councils. Last night at the Thorough Community Council, it was noted that they got feedback on their consultation, which they appreciated greatly. So, must be heading in the right direction. Right then, move on to item 4, scrutiny review, town and village improvements, further update of the desktop review of shopfront improvement scheme and other local authorities. This report provides further members evidence following a discussion at the shopfront improvement scheme in comparison with other local authorities at the last committee meeting. Members will recall we asked for information regarding the uptake of the shopfront improvement scheme within the other local authorities, and this is summarised in paragraph 3.4 and is detailed in the appendix. We also asked that we were signposted to feedback on the scheme of a series of visits to local towns and villages last year, and this is referred to in 3.6. Information on action taken to date to improve signage in our town is set out in paragraph 3.5 for our consideration. And Gillian is here to answer any questions arising from the report. Other members?
Morning.
No problem. Any points that members would like to ask on the report in front of us? Mara?
Chair, sorry, it's probably not a question, it's more of an observation in my part, but the Renfrewshire Council, its operation scheme seems to be really good. If you look at the notes, I like the way they kind of set their criteria out. It's quite good, it covers, maybe it's, I don't know whether we've got all of that or some of that in the answer.
We've not got as much detail in ours as that.
It might be something, because I quite, especially the bit with the no council debt or the maximum 3 outlets, and a couple of kind of things I thought was quite on the question, Chair.
Other members sort of enamoured with those sort of views, because we could put that in when we go to recommendations to full council as things that could be looked at. Is there an opposing view? Councillor Wicks?
Not an opposing view, Chair, just a question. You can help me get up to speed in terms of the appendix. Operate a scheme across, I presume, means they don't operate a scheme. And when it's not, when the box, like in Angus Council, is not ticked or crossed, what does that mean?
It means that they don't operate a scheme, yes, right?
They don't operate a scheme, yes, but there is work ongoing, as we can see, moved across to the box.
Yeah, these are the ones that are more limited to a certain area that they've chosen within the region as opposed to ours, which is region-wide.
you for that clarity.
Councillor Wood.
It's just when you look at the review of objectives, it says to compare and contrast with ranges and other local authority areas, including evaluation and methodology. When I look actually through the appendix, there seems to be no other authority doing any methodology or analysis. So how do we compare?
We're going to bring that forward in the next paper, to the next committee, sorry. We've got some evaluation methods that are being used by Scottish Government, for instance, but at the moment there is no local authority who has a specific evaluation method.
Because I noted that it's through yourself, Chair, in item 6, I think it does talk about there is a recognised methodology that can be applied. And what I don't understand is why is it not being applied? Are we not accountable to the public purse as to whether what we spend is actually giving us a return or not? And that's not just our authority, it's all authorities that have undertaken this.
If I can help, there's been a town centre regeneration evaluation methodology developed by Scottish Government fairly recently, involving housing as much as it involves economic development interventions. What it hasn't done and what it hasn't been done across local government is apply it to the very particular shopfront improvement schemes. So I think it's a methodology that looks at all the interventions that you might take, including public realm, rather than just simply the shopfront improvement scheme. So that's why it hasn't been applied, but that's not to say it shouldn't be developed and used.
Can I? The other thing is, throughout this whole project, I don't think I've ever seen sight of the actual objectives of this project in the first instance. What was agreed, what was set up to take forward, and what were the principles that we were applying when we undertook it?
I think that's probably a fair comment. I've looked back for the committee papers back to 2011, and there was a budget set aside, but it would probably be fair to say that there wasn't a set scope within that was put forward.
Councillor Collins.
Thanks, Chair. Just on the back of that, I think the discussion opened up on the basis of concerns around events that had taken place in Edinburgh and bits of buildings coming down and striking members of the public, and in relation to properties both in Wigton and here in Dumfries itself, and how the fabric of those buildings was deteriorating and how that reflected poorly on our towns and villages. And evolving from that was a shop front general tidy up and make it more attractive to everyone, including visitors. So I think it evolved that way, but that point isn't contained within here, whether or not building standards have a minimum requirement to ensure that buildings are safe, particularly those that have been by and large abandoned, and therefore the deterioration of those is accelerated because of that abandonment. So we have a responsibility to the public to ensure that the buildings aren't going to come down and run about their ears, as well as trying to enliven the local economy by best use of the properties, whether that be for housing or for commercial purpose.
That's a fair point to make. I don't know whether building standards actively go out and check, or whether it's more a case of if someone notices something, they then report it. And I think we do have a duty to make sure that any building is made safe, whether it's Harris fencing put around it to make sure nothing falls on top of people.
Yeah, I would say though, Chair, that if you get to the point where fencing needs to be put round to protect people, you've gone beyond the pale. That we shouldn't be allowing properties to deteriorate to that degree, and that we need to ensure the fabric of our towns and villages as much as possible to ensure the safety of the public and not have events such as the young lady who was killed in Edinburgh, which, as I say, is what sparked a lot of this, is my recollection.
Any other points on paper we have in front of us? Andrew?
One last point, and that is the other local authorities that you were engaging with to try and find out what their circumstances were. Had they also gone through a scrutiny process? Had any of them gone through a scrutiny process?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
With that, we're asked to consider the further evidence, so have a look at it. Consider the summary of the update information including 3.5 and 3.6, and to agree this should be added to the evidence gathered for the town and village improvement scrutiny review. Members happy to agree the recommendations? Great. Move on to item 5, which is town and village improvements, town centre living. Member will recall from the previous committee there requested information be provided on the concept of town centre living. This report details some information on this as an approach and also provides information on the housing regeneration area development in Dumfries, which the council is leading. Gillian's here again to answer any questions. Over to members. Is there any points you would like to raise? Brian?
I have a problem in terms of the last round of planning determinations that the council made and the recommendations that came from planning. I've got particular regard to the village setting and where housing allocation is made. And in the case of New Galloway, for example, the housing allocation was made on the periphery of the town. Surely we should be looking as much as possible to strengthening the heart of these towns and not putting people at the furthest point from where the shops and businesses are. We're losing businesses hand over fist from these villages, and it's difficult enough. So I think planning really needs to have that very much to the fore in their minds, the economic of the geography of the villages and future developments, and the can-do attitude, not to say because it's on the side of a hill you can't build there because it will be overlooking other properties. How do you avoid that? How do you get round that and it's not overlooking other properties but allowing the development to take place?
Something that maybe we as members should be feeding into the local development plan as it comes forward over the next few months. So
It's part of the local development plan, but there's no point in going forward with a shopfront development, for example, if you're chasing the potential customers away or taking them away to the other end of the estate.
Marion?
Thanks, Chair. See if I can get a wee bit more information on 3.6. It doesn't have to be just now, but if somebody could give me out specifically, it says that in 3.6.3 that the Scottish Government has sought bids and could I get a bit more information on that? Who's bidded, if you're able to give me that? I'm not sure if you can or not, but just on the information you've got in 3.6, it's just a pure curiosity, please. Thanks, Chair.
Any other point? Alistair? Yeah.
Thank you. Chair, it's to do with the empty home office vacancy. Has been vacant for over a year now. What's the plan? Have you got in place? Are you 2-year kind of post for a future person?
That's actually a vacancy that's being advertised at the moment. They're looking to fill it, I think, again for another year. But it's actually on the system at the moment to be filled again.
Was it used to be a joint post to do with Ayrshire? Is it a joint post? No, it's always been Dumfries and Galloway post.
It's a Dumfries and Galloway.
Right, okay, thanks.
Alistair?
Yeah, 3.4.2, Chair. The first sentence says the market is more marginal and the outturn rent is much lower in rural areas. Are we defining the whole of Dumfries and Galloway as a rural area and comparing it to larger cities like Glasgow and Edinburgh? That's my first question. The second thing is it makes it less attractive for high street shop owners or businesses to convert their upper floors to homes for rent or sale. Now, if you have a shop and you've got an empty property above you, why would you want to keep it empty, even if you can get a very small rent for it? Would it not be better to have it occupied, unless we're talking about other uses that the owners, the shopkeepers could make of the upper floors, for example, for storage or something? Have we any evidence that we questioned people, shopkeepers, why are you prepared to leave your upper floors empty? What is the reason for that? Is it just because, well, I've maybe partially answered it myself, maybe they do see it as better to leave it empty and use it for storage or something?
It may
Two
also,
questions, really.
it may also be the fact that a lot of these shops are older in design, and to bring them up to lettable standards, there's a bit of work to do, and building standards nowadays, I can give you examples of our flat above our shop which we hope to bring back in, but we've got various things to do to it because of the current building standards that mean it's taking a bit of time and it could be a bit of money to do it. Now, I'm happy to do that because I see it as investment in the building and I'll get a return at a later date possibly, whereas some people might not have the capital to invest in the property at the time, therefore making it unviable, and the return they get from a lower rent may not make the proposition viable for them. That might be the issue.
Obviously, I bow to your expertise, Chair, but is that for the officers? Is that an officer's view as well? Is that, and can we make it easier for people? I mean, I'm not saying we should break the law and say, well, that should be done, but we'll let you in anyway, without having it done.
I think from discussion, what we have found is that some shops do use it as storage, and therefore they would lose that valuable space that they use for the storage. And as the chair says, there is some quite difficult regulations that have to be met before that you can let out. So it can be a case of the regulations are quite difficult to meet.
That poses another question, Chair. Can we facilitate the conversion of these properties in terms of? I know we're no flush with money at the moment, but can we use some council money as an incentive, as a grant?
That's maybe something you could consider in your budget going forward. But I would have to declare an interest in that game forward, I would think.
I wasn't offering it to you personally.
I think as well, we would need the market for people who want to live in those kind of properties. So we don't always have the people who would want to live town centre. They would need no access issues, or you know, it tends to be a younger or childless couple, or that kind of demographic that would live in those kind of properties. So it's whether we have that market. There's quite a few different conditions of people who would want to live in those kind of properties.
Thanks. Andrew?
In 3.5.3, there's a talk about the House Authority agreeing to extend funding to enable the empty homes officer. Further down in the paragraph, it talks about how that post has been vacant for over a year. What impact is that actually having? And why is that post not being filled? What is happening to the funding that was set aside?
Well, as said earlier, we are advertising that post just now, but I don't know how far through that process we have. It may be that the post has been seen as an opportunity to delay spending money on that for a saving for, being included in the budget. That's what it might have. The actual impact on what's been happening, that's something I couldn't answer. Maybe. Have you got any evidence of has it had any impact by not having the officer in place?
I think the impact has been that they were starting to bring properties back into use, and there have been conversations ongoing, but unfortunately the post ended before the conversations went any further, so the properties haven't been brought back into use, but there has been interest in them, which is why the post is now out for recruitment.
Can I come back to your point where you're saying how it could be a budget saving? It shouldn't be a budget saving because it's been agreed by a committee to extend the funding, so the funding must have been in place or put in place.
But when vacancies come up, they are often used to cover overspends, and depending on the time, or if there's someone else in the actual directorate who can do that job, they may cover them with that to cover overspends. That's one of the ways they've done it in the past. Not saying it happened on this occasion, but it has happened in the past. Okay. Any other points with regard to the town centre living? We've been asked to consider the evidence and information detailed in paragraph 3.4 to 3.6 and agree this should be added to the evidence gathered for the town and village improvement scrutiny review. We're happy for that to be added to the evidence. Move on to item 6. Scrutiny review on town and village improvements, actions, next steps and initial observations. This report outlines the suggested next steps for this review and summarises the main findings we have captured so far. Officers have identified that we should receive further evidence as outlined at paragraph 3.5 on public realm investments and approaches to evaluating the effectiveness of town centre regeneration programmes. Subject to our debate today and the addition of any evidence we have agreed from this previous report, I believe it would also be helpful for a report on draft recommendations to be brought to our next committee. Gillian's here to answer any questions on the report again, so I'll open it up to members. Ryan?
Thanks, Chair. Just as a general observation, and I'm concerned that there's no mention of RSLs in these reports in the context of their contribution to this discussion and how socially rented housing and other housing developments might impact have a positive impact in certain areas, and how therefore we might target any future efforts. I wonder if that information could be gleaned from the RSLs, or if there's another way of us gathering that information to add to the body of information that we already have.
There has been some examples of properties in sectors where the RSLs have came in and started work on them. I'll not say they're finished yet.
The council put a fortune into the flats down there.
I can think of one in Vennel, which we've had issues with historics. I don't know if it was Historic Scotland or archaeological finds on the site, so they could maybe give us some information on what we could do. Yeah.
Thank you. And 3.7 individual members of the community and community groups felt that tourist and directional signpost, car parking, how to walk to the town centre in towns and villages was not always clear and did not always give the best impression to visitors. This made me think of the bus stops in Dumfries, like we have fun statues, Great King Street, and the lighthouse. Even people who live locally sometimes doesn't know where to get the bus to, for example, from Dumfries to Castle Douglas, from Dumfries to Lochside, Dumfries to Heathrow. They really don't know. What about to the visitors and tourists? How can we make it more easier for people? How can we make something that is readable, that easy, or if you should go there, you should go there, you should go there, if you want to go visiting different places. But we don't have such information that's available. Something that we should consider to make it better for the tourists and visitors.
It would be, I like to see your bus timetables and maybe directing them to somewhere like the mid-steeple where you could actually give out information. I noted there was a scheme, one of the local groups, it's a People's Project, they've invested in is it a friend or something they call them, I can't remember what the term is, for Dumfries Town Centre, whereby that person, anybody wants to ask a question, they should be up to speed with likes of your bus timetables, or at least send them in the right direction for where to go for a bus, where the facilities are, things like that. Also looking to try and keep the town centre clean. Whether that works or not, I'm not sure, but that's a new thing that's just either started or hopes to start beginning next summer. Something that's maybe in post getting trained up just now. So,
Thank you.
Andrew?
The initial scheme was set up with £200,000 budget. Out of that £200,000, how much was actually used? And do we have a breakdown of the various areas that it was used within? Because I do note, and it rightly so, that Dalbeattie had a block of applications. Do we have a value on that?
This scheme was used across the region, and the grants have been applied for in Annandale and Eskdale at 14, Wigton at 11, Stewartry at 13, and Eskdale at 17. And at the point that we actually got that information, they've already paid out 100,000, and there was 50 allocated and 57 in the village.
So the 57 million budget.
There was at that point, but that was in May 15.
Right. And those that were held up, were they held up through planning?
It's now all been allocated because there's a further amount of allocation just been agreed.
Right. For that, thank you.
Alistair?
We've touched on signage, and Councillor Yen made an important point about how people need to know about on buses and such like, but we don't seem to have a consistent policy in terms of when people approach our towns, and Dumfries, for example, which you know best, the various routes in, it says twinned with Gifford or something, and other routes it doesn't say anything. Other places, other routes you see home of Robert Burns, 1792 to 96, which I think is a good sign to have, because that makes is well known, Robert Burns. I know we're now calling ourselves a learning town, but that is nothing for me. It suggests to me, as an impartial visitor, that to be harsh, Dumfries isn't very bright, but we're working hard to get better. Maybe I'm just being too cynical, but there doesn't appear to be a consistent policy in terms of signage as we approach our towns. I know some routes are more important than other A routes and more important than B routes, but have we thought this one through, or is it just on an ad hoc basis?
I think some of it's done in ad hoc because the purple signs, which are, is it the University Town of Dumfries or something?
Mm-hmm.
They were Dumfries and Galloway Nistale Area Committee who commissioned those signs. There were other ones would be commissioned through Nistale, some through possibly Dumfries Area Committee at different times, and it's been, like you say, ad hoc rather than a strategy of this is how we brand everything. Because remember, the first signs came with pink, and members weren't too happy with that, so we got to make purple because that was the kind of corporate colours of the council. But I think it's a good point. You know, we should be advertising across our town exactly why people should be coming here and highlighting our good points, Robert Burns, etc. University, Dumfries, Queen of the South, I think is one of the ones that the sign has on it. So yeah, that's a good point. Andrew?
I agree with what my colleague's saying about signage, but signage isn't just about physical signage, it's also about making sure that we have people in position that can inform the community and those visitors that come to our town. Now I understand that we have an ambassador for Dumfries. Should we not be learning from our past mistakes and ensuring that she is made, or that she's equipped with the support required to make sure that we do actually deliver on that particular project? Because, for example, we have as many bus shelters with advertising opportunities, and this council, as I understand it, has a fair control over what goes on in those bus shelters. Why are we not utilising them?
I'll just say that there's currently a programme out consulting about advertising in bus shelters. And also insofar as Learning Town's concerned, a news report as recently as today, I believe, speaks of when the Glasgow University was going to pull out of the town previously, there was something like 110 students. There's now in excess of 340. So that has secured the Learning Town label, and 340 students, I would suggest, in Dumfries now going through Glasgow University is something of a turnaround for this area to get that skills base developed and grow the attention to the area for students coming here to study.
With regard to the training of the ambassador, my understanding is it was based on a town down south somebody had visited from the People's Project, and I think we'll be looking to plagiarise where we can. You know, don't invent the wheel again if you can find something that's good. And it was working well down there, so I think that will be put into any training programme that's required to make sure that we replicate as best we can what was a good scheme down. I think it was Richmond, maybe, or something like that. Marion, and then Alistair.
This, I'm not quite sure whether this should really comes under this committee or not, but the signage in car parks, is that something that can be discussed at this time, or would that be something? The simple thing it comes to basically is that it's on the signpost in Stranraer and One Pacific car park, it's got long stay. Now, our issue is the definition of long stay, because we're getting caravans being put into the car parks and trailers, and because it's coming under long stay, the people that owns them refusing to move them, because it's as long as it says long stay. And I've spoke to the roads about it, and they don't seem to be able to give me a definition of what long stay means, or are willing to maybe look at the signs to change that. So that's maybe not something to stay, but while I see long or right in the way there, I just thought I'd take the opportunity to see maybe if that's something that we could look at.
Alistair?
Yeah, regarding the use of the town centre ambassador chair, and I've seen an operation in travels in other countries, and I was in Sicily a few years back, and they employed people. I don't know if they even employed them. I think what you would describe as young olds. I mean, retired people who wish to, and probably offer the services for free. had a semi-official role of approaching obvious visitors at bus stations and railway stations, and visitors who are not very purposeful but looked as if they were looking for something to do or find the sights of the town, and just to engage with them and say, invite them to, you know, and if you imagine Dumfries, would you like to see the burn goes or the units up there, blah, 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 that sort of thing. So, just a thought. You know, I'm not saying that town centre ambassador should be used in that role, but or maybe in a supervisory role, perhaps, for volunteers.
From what I understand of the ambassador's role, it involves some of that, whereby if somebody's looking kind of lost, going, you know, it looks like a visitor, and they could then advise them, you know, what are you sort of looking for, and point them in the right directions. Okay, so that's part of the role, but maybe if you've got sort of a volunteering group to do it as well, on a sort of ad hoc basis, helping people out, that would add to the ambassador's role as well. Yeah.
Thanks, Chair. In the last bullet point of 3.7, which is Dumfries and Galloway Council has not evaluated the shopfront improvement scheme. I wonder why. I just don't understand this paragraph. It's plain English enough for me.
It was the point that we have evaluation schemes that cover a whole range, like a programme of town centre regeneration, but not specifically for the shopfront improvement scheme, because it would be part of a town centre regeneration. So although you would evaluate the full thing, we don't have something specific, and that was found in all local authorities.
See, we're doing all the visit to the villages and town centres. Was that not part of shopfront improvement scheme evaluation?
It would be from the work that we've done through this committee. Yes, it has an element of evaluation, yes, because we've asked them how they felt before and after.
So that could be mentioned in the thanks.
There's no further thoughts. Andrew?
One thing, going back to signposting, I'm going to ask it right to have do we have an app for Dumfries? Do we have the technology so that when people come in, they can use their smartphones, go up to an item, and it tells a story about it?
We have an app for the buses.
Oh, that's interesting.
I don't know. I'm not aware.
And we don't have anything that actually.
I'm not aware that the council has, but there may be community groups
Yeah.
that have established that.
Previously on posters, the graphics department have placed on the QR scan, so you can go up and scan. They don't do it on all things, but it links to a website which gives more information. It's mostly on event type posters, but they'll put a QR scan so that people can go up to it, scan it, and then take it to the website. But it's not a specific Dumfries and Galloway sort of application.
Isn't it something that's worthwhile considering for Dumfries to just be that, you know, one step ahead with technology and encourage people into our town centres by having an app that if you go into Dumfries, if you go into Thornhill, if you go into Sederunt, you log into this app and it will tell you where you can go, what you can shop and do, etc. And it's dedicated to Dumfries and Galloway Council.
That's something I think we should work up with Chamber of Commerce and shopkeepers and stuff like that. I think it'd be a good idea. But I don't know if it's something we should be the ones who we should maybe lead on it, but we should involve the other groups as well.
Yeah. It shows in time with what Visit Scotland are doing to promote Dumfries and Galloway, and what's on Dumfries and Galloway website as well, which is good.
Mary?
Can I just come in and what Andrew's just spoke about there? I obviously can't give too much detail at the moment, but there is something ongoing with exactly what Andrew's talking about, and it's an excellent project. But they are sticking with the council. It's the council that's causing them slight problems because they're not supporting them. So now that maybe this has been discussed, maybe that may be way to change now, and the support may be there, because it's exactly what you said. But instead of going to a website, they're trying to put it over to direct to give you information what it's about, with a background to it, and it's a charity organisation. It's through my aim, but they're wanting to cover Dumfries and Galloway. So if the council can step in and be that support,
Because the one thing, I was at a meeting the other night, and if you're wanting young people to interact, there's no point putting it on websites because they don't do that now. They seem to have other ways to search and
that's right.
whatever.
They've done a lot of background stuff on this, and they've been working on it for months now, and it's really coming on really well, but they just need that wee bit of support. No financially, I don't think, it's just fine the support from the council, because everybody they speak to, they're coming to a dead end with them, so that might be something that maybe we could speak to. Yeah, that it gets it on the move while it's maybe if I could find out who it would be they would speak to on that project, would be really good if somebody could email me with that information.
Chair,
Yeah.
Thanks, Chair. We've recently received some kind of link from Vanessa Morris from the Dumfries Learning Town project called Places. So when you click into that link, you get to know quite a lot of places in Dumfries cooperate to each other, collaborating on what's happening in Dumfries. So that could be similar kind of idea to what Andrew was saying. Yeah.
It's just so we have runs with a phenomenal amount of history and the stuff that people can see and interact in, the whole of the region. I just don't think we're doing a very good job of selling it.
It might be an opportunity for yourself, Andrew, because you've actually, sorry, Chair, because you've actually spoke about it. If you're happy for me to put your name over to them to speak through for this end, and because they've got a point of contact, because they're dealing with me obviously through that end. But if you're happy with that,
anything to promote Dumfries and Galloway.
Absolutely, and once I find out who the council point of contact would be, that would be kind of them set to go. Thanks, Chair.
If there's no other points, we have the recommendations. Note the progress and action taken. Note that. Review and agree the next steps for the scrutiny review are set in Appendix 1 and highlighted at paragraph 3 to 5. And we're happy to agree those next steps.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think, somebody mentioned something that we're going to bring back in or something. Or might. Or a wee additional piece of information that we're wanting.
There's a couple of things that's helpful. There was discussions around housing and supporting housing in the town centre, and also the linking the RSLs, which Councillor Collins mentioned, which we need to bring back. There was quite a discussion about signage, both in terms of online through an app within the town centre in relation to car parks as well, and also signage to send people to places that can get further information. And members had asked for an update just on the spend in terms of the shopfront improvement scheme, and we'll make sure that information is updated from the last report that we provided on that.
One other point is public awareness of the council's input. We need to look at, when we're undertaking such projects, how we can ensure that the council does get some credit for what it's doing. Because all too often we take the knocks for where we're failing. Let's try and get something a bit positive.
Absolutely, yeah.
So we'll bring that back. Or the review and agree the evidence and analysis required from the scrutiny review. We'll add those wee points in that we mentioned as well. We're happy to do that. Brian.
Thanks, Chair. This has been a bone of contention for me for a long time, and I raised it with the Director of Education some years ago. But we've got all these village schools across the region, and all these kids in primary schools especially doing projects about their local area and so on and so forth. And yet as a region we're so very poor at selling our area. I had a couple of relatives come and visited a few months ago, and both are school teachers, and they had no knowledge that Burns had died or was buried in Dumfries or the south of Scotland come of that. And that to me is a measure of how poor we've been over the years at selling. People assume that he's buried in Galloway because Ayrshire have done such a good job of promoting Burns from their perspective and for their interest. But there's a whole lot, as Andrew said earlier, of activities and people who have played important roles in the world who've originated from across Dumfries and Galloway. And I would like to see a link between the projects done in the primary schools, because the information's there, and bringing that information forward to inform people of that local interest and give people pride in their local area, but more generally raise the profile of Dumfries and Galloway from a marketing point of view. You can cycle here, you can tour around here, and the reasons why you can do that, and the M74 doesn't need to be a Dumfries and Galloway bypass.
Maybe add something there as well, back to the evidence analysis. And with that, agree that emerging recommendations are developed to be considered at the March meeting of this committee. Agree that?
So, can I go back to 2.3? And that is agreeing evidence analysis. No, it's not. It's where we're looking at the future analysis. I understand that there's quite a lot of local authorities are working with other local authorities to set up packages whereby you can encourage visitors to come into your town centres, and rather than just stay for 1 day, you stay for 2 or 3 days. And this came to light actually last weekend. There was up at Sederunt Castle, and there was one of the operators in there was telling us about how they're spending about £4 million on various works, not just in the castle, but on looking at a boat sailing from Edinburgh up the west coast of the river, wherever. But obviously they're looking at the docking at Stirling, and the whole idea of this is so as to try and give a package between the two cities. And I don't understand or don't see any reason why we shouldn't be able to work with Ayr, or for example, as Councillor Collins was saying about Raleigh Bands, and Alva, and there's other connections that we have through the borders, so as to try and give them a package that helps them while also helping ourselves. Because this is all about trying to improve villages and the town centres, and you only improve that by activity and people coming to see what's going on. And you can't rely on the same people coming, so you've got to make sure it
Attract you.
yeah, further afield.
Just I think I understand that the development of the river, particularly in Stirling, is part of.
Sorry, I can't hear you.
I understand part of the development in the river in Stirling, and some of those developments
Yes.
are part of their city deal that they achieved.
That's right.
So that's one of the areas where they've been able to develop those connections, and I think that's something that we will record here as a further area for recommendation to bring back to the next committee as part of developing any regional deal for this area as well.
No, that'd be helpful. Yeah. Good.
That included. I have no further business. Can I thank you all for your attendance?
Thank you, Chair.